Catherine. Welcome to my video podcast where I share my making adventures with a variety of crafty things. I live in the rural Midwest with my husband and our 2 daughters, and we will be welcoming another baby soon. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, and it is almost 2:30 in the afternoon and everybody's home, so hopefully there won't be a lot of background noise for you, but please excuse it if there is. You can find me on Ravelry or Instagram as My Making Adventure, and I'd be happy to have you follow my adventures there as well. Today I wanted to start off with a question of the video. So please put your answers down below in the comments for me, selfishly, to be able to see all of your responses. This is building off of, I shared last episode about having worsted weight yarn I was going to be looking for ideas for knitting with, and Dawn had shared that she really thinks that it makes for good slippers. And so I want to know, what is your favorite thing that you have knit with worsted weight yarn? So share with me those patterns or those items that you've made that you really love with worsted weight yarn. I think that will help inspire me to find a good way to use up my yarn. Thank you so much. If you participate, I will be very blessed by that. All right, today in my podcast episode, we'll start with finished objects, and then I have a few works in progress, and I have a future cast on that I've swatched for that I'll be happy to share with you as well. My first finished object, the cat decided to join me, but I don't think she's in the way. My first finished object is the Petit Souffle, and this pattern is by Laura Penrose, and I knit the size 1/2 using Yarn Bee Bambootiful, which is a Hobby Lobby yarn, and I knit it on, hey, you can get down please, thank you, US size 4 needles, doing a size 2 needle for the ribbing. And I did modify the pattern to have ribbing at the neckline, at the hem. It's originally just written, I think, at the sleeves, if I'm remembering it right. And I did size needles way down from when I've knit with this yarn before to try to get a tight gauge and to meet gauge for the pattern. It has now, I think last time I was close to done. So, but now it's been worn and washed in the washing machine, and we laid flat to dry. We did not put it in the dryer, but it seems the yarn does show signs of wear already, but the shape of the garment didn't change from the washing machine. So that's really nice. I didn't expect it to, but that's a big blessing. Every time she's worn it, she has spilled food on it. So it's not like when I wear my sweaters, and sometimes I can get away with wearing them a couple times before washing them again. Hers have needed a soak or run through the washing machine every time, but she loves wearing it and she loves the ruffle. So I think probably it was worth the effort and worth using up the yarn. I'm gonna sneeze, excuse me. Okay, we're back. We're back, I think. Hey, not you. You do not need to come back. Now that I'm done talking about the Petit Souffle, my cat is going to take a nap on it. So hopefully that will keep her out of my way. The next finished object I have is a pattern called Perfect Newborn Socks by Tabitha Gandy. And I used a US 1 with some fingering weight yarn, and I made little cardboard sock blockers so you can see how cute they turned out. I did do the cable pattern. There's a rib pattern or a cable pattern. I did do the cabling on these, and I think they're really fun, and I'm really excited to have been able to make those for the soon to be here little baby. I feel like there's not not a lot to share there. If I zoom up, can you see that better? So I'm not sure if I wrote in my Ravelry, nope. It used less than 20 grams of yarn. That's what I can tell you, because I know I have leftover yarn from the 20 gram, but I did not measure how much yarn it actually used. I do have one more finished object that if you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably be able to guess what it is. But otherwise, you might not know, because I did not share about it because I hadn't started it last time I filmed a podcast 2 weeks ago. So this is a sibling sweater. I was struggling to meet gauge, but I made it work with the yarn that I had purchased for it. And this is the first of 2 that I'm working on. So this is the 1 to 2 size, which is the smallest size of the pattern. And it makes a 24.75 inch bust, which my youngest daughter has an 18-inch bust. So there's 6+ inches of positive ease here. I did measure this after washing it, and I am about 25 inches. So it appears as though I was close to gauge, because I was able to follow the pattern pretty much exactly. I was worried that my row gauge was off, but every time the pattern gave a number of rows to do, and I followed that, and then I measured it, I was like kind of on track, and I tried it on her and it fit. So I was pretty close, I think. But this is Cascade 220 Superwash yarn, and I used a US 4 or a 3.5 millimeter needle. The pattern calls for a US 6, I believe. So I had to size down my needle quite a bit. Otherwise, I did 4 different colors instead of just the 2 that the pattern calls for. So that was another change. And because of that, I did not carry my yarn at all, and I had to weave in 1,042 ends. I mean, just so I have woven them in and trimmed them before blocking, but now I have to cut them all off. I did a little bit of a weave in as you go method, which helps me keep my yarn tighter at the join. But also there's a few places I feel like because I did that, you can sort of see the yarn through. I don't know if that shows. The only other thing I did, other than 4 colors instead of 2, that's off of the pattern, is I knit the cuffs a bit longer, just hoping that for now she can have them folded and the sleeves will be the right length, but the sweater will fit her longer if I can then extend the sleeves later on. So that was the purpose of that. Just hoping that we can get a little bit more wear out of it. The sweater I knit for her last fall still fits over her head, but the sleeves come to like barely past her elbow. And it's a little bit short, but it's not too short in the body. It's just really she's outgrown the sleeves. So I guess because of that, in anticipation of that happening again, I went ahead and knit the sleeves, the cuffs a little bit longer. Here's the pretty shoulder detail, and I think it turned out great. I wasn't set on all of the finishing details being the same color, but it just worked out that way. Like, I felt like teal would be the best color to do around the collar because of the way the purple and pink would bleed in with it, especially the pink being the main color around the back. I didn't want a white color because I felt like that would wear faster. And so teal was the color I went with. Then when I knit this, I think I finished the sleeves before the body. When I knit the sleeves, no, I finished the body first. When I knit the body and it was long enough, I needed teal next. That's the next color in the pattern. And the same thing happened for the sleeves. So it just ended up that all of those finishing details were the same color, even though I wasn't necessarily set on that from the beginning. I did weigh the yarn I have left over and then calculate that I used about 40 grams of the purple color, 38 grams of the cream color, 48 of the pink, so a little bit more of the pink because it is used, it has more stripes than everything else. The pink and teal have more stripes than everything else on both the sleeves and the body. So 50 grams of pink and 77 grams of the teal yarn. I only originally purchased 100 grams of each color, knowing that that would be enough for this sweater, but also knowing that I would need to get more of the colors I chose to use in the sweater for my second daughter's sweater. Let's see here if there's anything else. So yeah, the finished chest circumference is 25 inches, which is fairly close to the 24.75 that the pattern says it will be. The full back length, so from the top of the collar to the bottom of the ribbing, is 16 inches. And this armhole depth here is 5 inches. So it's gonna be pretty oversized on her, but I put it on and it fits her beautifully. I mean, it's big, but not too big. And she's really excited to wear it. She is, Mama, are you done yet? Mama, is that for me? So but I told her she can't wear it until I finish her sister's, because these two last finished objects that I've had, other than the socks, are both for her, and it didn't feel fair. So they're gonna wait and wear their sweaters together. So yeah, I think that is it for that finished object. Okay, so I did actually think about one more thing I wanted to share about, just silly little thing I wanted to share about that project. I had originally ordered 6 colors of the Cascade 220 and swatched with all of them to see what colors we preferred for the actual sweater. And I didn't meet gauge with that swatch. So I ended up re-swatching with just the color I knew I wasn't going to use. And I was close enough to gauge with that I knew it would work to use those needles. But I ended up ripping out the original swatch and using those small pieces of yarn for this section here, where you just add little bits and bobs of yarn. And I thought that was really fun, because then these little pieces, hopefully you can see those, these little pieces are all that I ended up having left over from those colors of the swatch. And that was fun because it felt like I was working hard to use my yarn well. And I've also used, this is the navy color that is not in her sweater, on a project you'll see in a little bit. And I used the yarn that was left over from the swatch on that as well. And I have a plan, there was also yellow in that original swatch, and I have that tucked in with the project that it's going to be used on. So I'm feeling quite thrifty using up the little bits of that original swatch that I didn't need anymore because it didn't meet gauge. All right, so that is my finished sibling sweater in the size 1-2. And now I would like to show you my in progress sibling sweater. So this transitions us to works in progress. I was able to get to a point where I don't currently have any yarn attached. So I just recently finished that first sibling sweater and cast on a second. And I am working on the back panel. I'm in the second repeat of my pattern. And I think I calculated I should get almost all the way through the second repeat before transitioning to the front sides of the pattern. So this is the same yarn. I have to order more so that I'll have enough to finish, especially the teal, because that was used for all the cuffs. This is all the teal that I have left. And this one for my older daughter is being knit in the size of the pattern is 3/4. So everything else, yarn and needles and everything is the same. It's just one size up from the first one that I made. I did with the previous one, and I plan to do that again. When I like finish the back panel, I'll weave in these ends, and then I'll do the front sides and weave in those ends. And then when I finish the body, I'll weave in ends as I go, some here and some there, so that I don't have 100 ends to weave in at the end. Oh, the only other difference is that my daughter requested her stripes be in a different order. So it's actually the opposite order. This first one goes pink, teal, white, purple, and this one goes purple, white, teal, pink. So they'll be a little bit different, but very much the same. Most people probably won't notice that upon looking at them, although I imagine I will do the collar and the ribbing a different color other than teal. I'm thinking pink, but we will have to see how it works out. I'm gonna sneeze again. So I have been working very monogamously on the sibling sweaters, feeling inspired to have my girls wearing cute little matching sweaters, but also wanting to get to a point where I knew how much more yarn I needed to order. But I did cast on one other project. So I have one more whip to share with you. And that is a pair of mittens that I told my daughter I would knit from the yellow Cascade 220 yarn that I did not put into the sweater. And so I have started those, and she wanted to use both the yellow and the navy in them. These mittens follow the World's Simplest Mitten pattern by Tin Can Knits. I followed what the pattern says to do for an adult small. I'm sure my gauge is off. I'm using worsted weight yarn, but I'm knitting on a US 5/6 needle, and I designed my own little colorwork pattern for her mittens. So here's the first one, and here's the second one. I'm still working on the thumb gusset of the second one, but here's the first one. No thumb yet, but I'm planning on using that little scrap from the swatch to knit the thumb. And I don't know if this will be enough for both thumbs or just one, so I just waited. And the navy from the swatch is what I used here. So her first name starts with R. So as a surprise, I put a little R on there for her, and she loves it. She said, "Could you do it on the other mitten too, please?" And she loves this little every other pattern too, because she thinks the knit stitches look like hearts. So she thinks I like intentionally made a bunch of baby hearts for her on her mitten. I do feel like the proportions are pretty off. Like it's narrow and long, and I probably would have shortened it if I hadn't had to like finish my color work chart to make the design look good. And I didn't want to start the color work till after the thumb because I just didn't want to have to multitask and manage color work and increases, or carrying the yarn or anything like that. So I worked really, really hard to keep my color work loose because often I pull my color work too tight, but I still feel like this part is tighter than this. Obviously it doesn't have as much stretch, but I feel like it's a little bit tighter. And I might try Like this, the ribbing is knit on a 5, and then the rest of the mitten I knit on a 6. But what I might try is knitting the color work on a US 7 for this mitten. If you do you size up when you knit color work? Is that a thing people do? I think so. I think Amy from Noble Character Crafts was talking about doing that with her socks that she's doing that are color work. So I thought that I might try that. She was having a little bit of trouble like getting her fingers in there without catching the floats. And maybe I shouldn't have made the floats as long as I did in some places. But also there's just like a lot of extra yarn right now because I haven't woven in any ends. But here's where they're kind of long. I was really good about one project weaving in ends, but not so much on the other. So there's a lot of ends kind of hanging out in the mitten when she tries it on. But she loves them. She's not upset about them feeling like, she doesn't feel like it's too long or anything here. I mean, obviously she doesn't need them yet. It's September and we live in the Midwest, so it's like 85 degrees still most days. But for now, she's just really happy with them, and I'm happy that she's happy because that was the goal. She has now said that I also have to make her a hat with both colors. And obviously I don't have to, but I do like it when she's happy. But we'll see what ends up happening. So yeah, I think that is all about the mittens. My husband thinks it's funny that so far I have knit an R onto the left-handed mitten. So if you also find that humorous, go ahead and have a nice chuckle. I'm not going to knit an L onto the right-handed mitten. I'm also going to knit an R. So yeah, that is my second whip. And I don't have anything else going on at the moment, but I am planning to cast on a sweater for my husband. So in the fall, I like to knit something for everyone in our family. And because I am 8 months pregnant, I cannot knit my sweater yet. And because the baby hasn't been born yet, and we decided not to find out its gender until it's born, I don't want to knit the baby anything yet. So next up would be my husband's sweater. And the goal is that they would all sort of match. And I'm not sure if I definitely did not accomplish that last year. But I was trying to work towards that this year. So I used some of the same yarn in the girl sweater to swatch for his sweater, which I am planning to do Metamorphic by Lisa K. Ross. And it has some color work transition from light to dark, or you could do dark to light or however you wanted. The ones in the sample pages that I prefer are light to dark. So this is the same cream and the same teal that is in the girl sweater, but then the remaining part of the sweater would be in this dark navy, making his unique and not quite as bold as this that a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old can get away with, but an adult male probably can't. So I did not purchase the pattern yet because I like to make sure I can meet gauge before I purchase a pattern. But I did kind of like try to mimic the fade color work that is done in the pattern to see how it looks, and we're both quite pleased. I've never knit color work flat before, so there are imperfections or things that are done in a non-ideal way, I'm sure, on my swatch. But so this is still the Cascade 220 Superwash yarn. I used a size, now I don't remember, that's gonna be bad, 5. I use a size 5 needle. So the girls' sweaters are on 4s, and the gauge for the pattern is 22 stitches per 4 inches. This is a 19 stitch gauge, and I didn't quite meet it. And one of the things that is very clear is that my color work is tighter than my stockinette. And I know knitting in the round will only make that worse. My gauge in the round tends to be just a little bit looser than my gauge knitting flat. So I think I'm gonna try size 6 needles with a swatch and then going up to 7 for color work before I decide which needles to use for the project itself. So there'll probably be another swatch before I cast on this project. Swatching just really slows down your knitting, doesn't it? I could be casting on and working away, but that's good. It's good for, could you not walk in front of the camera, please? You can get down this way. Thank you. It's good for the wallet to be intentional with the yarn, the pattern purchasing, and then the knitting. So there will probably be another swatch in the future, hopefully meeting gauge. This swatch varied when I counted. I think I had like 23 stitches. That doesn't match. I don't remember. I counted the gauge and I knew I wasn't on, and it varied by at least 2 stitches per 4 inches, depending if I counted in the color work section or in the stockinette section. And this stockinette section is a little bit tighter than this stockinette section. So it's like medium, tight, loose. So, you know, that's how sweaters go though. I noticed when I was measuring the Petit Souffle, and maybe you can tell if I hold it up here, that just under the arms, the gauge is tighter. You can see that after that, it flares out a little bit at the bottom. And that's just my gauge changing. I didn't change needle sizes or anything. So here, the stitches are a little bit more narrow, and then here they're wider. And then I did bring it in, like I changed needle sizes for the ribbing, but otherwise, that's it. So this is my next project. I do think that the next thing I make for myself will be another Felix cardigan with my black non-superwash worsted weight yarn. And I have 3/4 skeins of that, depending if I can get one of the skeins overdyed. And I think that that will be enough. I'm going to knit a size smaller than I knit before and go for more of a cropped cardigan than the full length cardigan like I did on my Felix before. But I felt like I needed a break from knitting that pattern before jumping back into it. So those are my plans for now. And that is my knitting update. Thank you for joining me today for my making adventure. Until next time, God bless.